Good evening. You are listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Extreme Studios, just west of Orlando, Florida, here in the Pine Hills Palace. And I have from the Great Midwest, operator of the Geeky Puppet Show. That's RDV himself from the Great Midwest, as I like to say, because he's such a great guy. We're going to be discussing a great film tonight. And of course, that's the big blockbuster movie that came out this weekend, the summer event movie so far of this year. Not to be outdone by Top Gun, we have Mission Impossible 7 with Tom Cruise and a bunch of side characters, which I think is a prominent note to talk about. And RDV, I got to say this, I've talked a lot of action movies here on the Extreme Movie Show, like, as we say, an 80s based channel. We take requests from everybody on it. As people start filing in the chat here, I'd like to just throw out a couple things in my initial take. And that's one, the last couple movies I think were great. I think they are all their own movie. I think now everybody understands the template. I think we get to a point where we say, which penthouse pet am I taking home tonight, or which kind of favor am I going to ask from all of them? Because when you have it all, it's like, how do you choose? And I've noticed today an interesting trend over this weekend over Twitter with as much as I hated Indiana Jones and you found it acceptable, I think it's the factual part about it completely bombing and being outdone by Sound of Freedom and all that. And this movie, of course, without getting into the politics of it, I would sit there and say that there seemed to be some glee in certain media publications about how this movie's only doing $80 million for the weekend as opposed to the 90 projected. And they're, kind of like laughing at it, while they're trying to pump up Indiana Jones. And you know what? You called it a year ago when we talked about Top Gun about how this movie's going to have great word of mouth. You made that prediction more than once, and you're absolutely 100% right. And again, this movie made 80 million. It's doing gangbusters. It's in a shit ton of theaters. I know Barbie and Oppenheimer, not that anybody really likes the science behind it. They just want to see it because it's Christopher Nolan. Those movies, no matter how well they do, this movie's still going to kick ass and make a shit ton of money. And it just seems like people want to find every little nitpicking reason to hate on this movie. And you know what? Some people that we know that also like to review movies are kind of feeling the same way. But I got to tell you, I went to this theater. I bought tickets the night before. It was about half full. I went in, had some drinks with Mrs. Xtreme. We went in, we sat down, we watched it. Place was fucking rocking. It was quiet at all the right moments. People were clapping, cheering, laughing. There was some oohs and all that. At the end of the movie, there was an applause. And I tell you, for someone that does not actually get to the theaters a lot, this is a wonderful movie experience. It made me go, God damn it, I missed this here too. And yes, where I saw it, I don't know if you had this. Tom Cruise came on at the beginning and mentioned, hey, we really want to thank you for coming on and all that too. These MFers really know how to do PR and work it well, whether you believe in Tom Cruise or not. I was entertained. There's a lot to talk about, and I think this is just a great, wonderful film. This is what I'm used to and what I'm looking for a summer film. What's your initial take? And also, I want to hear about your experience, what it was like at the theater you saw it out in the Great
My
Midwest.
experience is the same as every other movie I've seen in Indiana Jones. 5 other people besides me.
Yeah.
Because I go to the very first showings.
Mm-hmm.
I hate going to the later showings where popcorn, wrappers, people kicking seats. I hate that experience. So, I'm a person. If they would just release this streaming day one, I would watch it at home. I wouldn't even go to the theater.
Yeah.
Yeah. I said I'm more comfortable with this because I watch these mostly movies I watch by myself because most people here, friends are either married or they're out of state. So if I go to the theater, I'm going by myself.
Yep.
And I prefer to go like during the day when there's no one there, so I don't have to waiting lines, all the other bullshit, people talking through the movie.
Yep.
But for me, this was a really good movie. I really had no issue with it whatsoever. I couldn't even find one. I'm trying to think back what annoyed me. Going into it, I looked ahead. I knew it was 2 hours and 45 minutes. So I did not drink anything before the theater. I took two piss breaks before because see the fact that I knew it was 2 hours and 45 minutes may I don't want to say that changed my experience though, because I knew John Wick was going to be long, but John Wick 4 was dull compared to this movie. John Wick 4 felt much longer, even though it's probably the same length this movie as this was, maybe a little shorter. This was nonstop action. This is the type of movies I like. It's the pace just keep moving. There's no dull spots where it's like where it takes time for it to get back to the action. You know me, I'm the action guy. I want the movie to keep moving.
Yeah.
Once it starts dropping, you might as well just call it a drama. And I hate dramas. You know.
Well, one of the things I thought was done well in this film, a couple of them, we'll hit on a bunch of them here. I'll ask you what you think they excelled at, but obviously, we're going to get a setup and opening gambit. It's going to be some larger than life task that they've got to put on and all that. What I liked about the setup for this movie is honestly, I almost preferred and didn't really put any thought into it until it was actually running. The opening sequence seemed a little bit longer, and maybe I'm wrong on that. And I liked how it didn't really deal with them; it dealt with the setup. And for the religious people out there, when you have this key that opens up something that looks like an all-seeing eye for your Illuminati freaks and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, I think they really dodged the conspiracy stuff that you could just get from that stuff alone and religious things, because as silly as it sounds, when they did the last movie and they kind of predicated COVID, if you want to call it that, and some people might go, well, they didn't know that was going to happen. That was just one of those freaky things. Well, maybe, but then at the same time, here, what were they dealing with? They were dealing with the hot
AI.
buzzword of this financial quarter and everything. And of course, that's artificial intelligence, right? And
It really felt like Skynet, didn't it? that's always my first go-to.
yeah, and there's all these puff pieces too, financially speaking, about how it's going to change things,
But
how it's going
not
to
even
decrease
that.
inflation and all that stuff. And it's a long, outstanding argument. And it's silly because who's the enemy? But they
So-
haven't done anything like this before, you know?
So I want to go back to a movie that starred Shia LaBeouf and Michelle Monaghan back in the early 2000s called Eagle Eye.
Yep.
Eagle Eye really focused with an AI was controlling people,
Mhm.
making them do stuff, working for them, and they're kind of getting that here too, a little bit in a sense. We have an awesome act. We say whole cast is on here too. The main villain, well, I guess you could call him the henchman, right? It's Isai Morales.
He owned this movie. God, he's
Yeah.
such a
Oh
handsome.
wow. Yeah.
He's got so much swag. It's
Yes.
insane.
Yeah,
We've talked about him
yes.
before.
He plays Gabriel. Now normally
name.
if it had been any other movie, they would just they wouldn't give him a background whatsoever. He's just basically a guy, and in this movie, he's the guy who's working for the AI.
Yeah.
And the AI is using him to, basically mask him from everything. So basically, when the cameras look at this guy, doesn't exist. So we run into a couple of times in the movie. But as the movie goes on, we learn more about who Gabriel is. Gabriel, before Ethan Hunt joined the service, he was, I guess he was with his girl he liked. Gabriel killed her. And then, he was wanted, and basically Ethan was wanted for murder. So Ethan joins IMF because of him.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I was trying to think. I'm like, it almost looked like the girl he shot in the beginning. The Gabriel shot looked like the girl from the very first movie, in a sense.
Yeah, because the first movie, what I liked about this is when it's Dead Reckoning Part 1, you think there's going to be a Part 2, and you definitely, with the end of this movie, feel like, okay, they did set this up for that, and we don't know if it'll be the last one or not, or how that'll work out, or if there'll be spin-off ones, but they definitely wanted to reference a lot of stuff, and religion aside, they even brought Kitteridge back, and I thought that's kind of interesting, too, because they played more of the thriller espionage kind of angle with this because of, like, well, there's not really, like, a freak out there that wants to, do stuff. It's just this intelligence thing that's kind of developed, and how do we stop it and everything else there too, and we won't mention the obvious plot hole of, well, why don't you just destroy the key, and then it can't happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the whole bring Kittredge back, and I really felt like the very first movie, like it's like if any of you guys are caught, you're disowned. We have no knowledge of your existence whatsoever. And I love how they really enforce it later on with Haley Atwell's character, Grace. Towards the end, he's like, you can join us. We're all pretty much ghosts. Your life's over. And so Haley Atwell's character, not
talk about Haley Atwell for a little bit, because before we talk about the action scenes, I wanted to talk about the characters, because I was surprised by how well I thought they did them in here, especially some of these newer ones.
So Grace, I couldn't help going back to Mission Impossible 2 with the other thing, because Grace plays a thief in this.
Mm-hmm.
Her character basically, she was hired by somebody else basically to steal the key, because basically it was Ethan was supposed to basically give the key and then give it back to Kittredge,
Mm-hmm.
bring it in. But instead, he decided to hang on to himself, goes rogue. That's why they sent all these other people after him. He's now wanted. He's the most wanted man in the world. Uh, and so Haley Atwell shows up at the airport where Ethan is going to basically hand off the key and then follow to see who the buyer is going to be. You know, because once they have both keys, and he bumps into her, she pickpockets the key out of him. And they do this thing. Now this is I was a little annoyed with. I guess I'm thinking about it. The whole sleight of hand.
It's flirting, bro. It's like the
No,
driving in
no.
a John Woo
So
version.
I kept going back. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like it's just like that.
This is what triggered Pixel
No,
in the
no,
John Woo film.
not no. I'm trying to think what movie was that. Not Catch Me If You Can. It was the other one. The magic one. Where they had the magicians doing tricks. Pickpocketing.
Yeah.
It just got to the point where it was cute at first, and then it kept going with it the whole entire movie. Even Issa Morales' character gets pickpocketed and left with the freaking lighter. It just kept going back and forth. I couldn't remember. Does the lighter detect Geiger? As far as is the lighter just a lighter? I thought it detected something, or I might get confused with the glasses that he's wearing in the
I think you're confusing
airport.
with the glasses.
Yeah, but yeah, so. Yeah, so those two, Grace and Ethan, for the first half of the movie, are going back and forth. People are trying to kill her as well as they're trying to kill him. Also trying to get captured by the CIA agents that are going after him, which is really good. We even get Palm Clemente here. For those who don't know who that name is, recognize you. Go back and watch Guardians of the Galaxy. She plays Mantis, and she is just what is she, like 5'2", just like Fury in this. She's
got the female swordsman Transporter 3 vibe going.
It feels like Kill Bill to me. She gets in the SWAT vehicle, and she's chasing them, and they're
We'll
in a
talk
car.
about the characters. We'll talk about the scenes.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, she's the new character along with Haley Atwell.
Yeah.
And Haley Atwell, like I said, she's kind of like a thief, but she doesn't want to be killed. But then again, I gotta say though, I was really pleasantly surprised because when it came to driving, she didn't know how to fucking drive whatsoever. I thought that was hilarious. I was like, really? They're going with that? So people are probably so offended by the fact that Haley Atwell's character didn't know how to drive, and he's like. He can't because she kept trying to leave him, so he handcuffed her to himself, and like they're driving. There's a scene where I'm going back to the what was it? Tomorrow Never Dies. Don't you remember that? How he handcuffed her. So so you have Pierce Brosnan and Michelle Yeoh are on the motorcycle driving, and they're handcuffed to each other. This was the same things that they were driving in the car and they kept switching. And she's like, I don't want to drive. He's like, well, whatever, just drive. And he's yelling at her to telling her where to go. And she's like, and she is just bad at listening to directions, going over. I just can't think of it's like they almost felt like a married couple situation.
Yeah, and the humor, there's some humor in it too with some of these action scenes here. But as far as the characters go, I'm not familiar with her. Do you know her from other stuff? Because there's also a couple others that I thought did really good. You're talking. I know you want to talk about was it Paris and the White Widow?
Well, as far as Haley Atwell goes, you have to be sitting under a rock if you've never seen the Captain America movies. She's also been in Black Mirror. She's also Agent Carter.
Oh, okay.
Yes. For those, and then she's also Cinderella 2015, The Pillars of the Earth 2010, British actress. And then as far as the I'm not sure who you mean by White Widow.
That was the name because she was in the last movie, Vanessa Kirby. Because she's not. Yeah. She has a look. I'm not going to say she's a classic beauty, or she's a blonde bombshell, or she's thick, or any of those type of descriptions. She just has a look that's got kind of like crazy eyes in it. Yes. Like if you saw her, you'd be like, she's crazy hot.
Vanessa Kirby, we first saw her in MI6 in Fallout. Actually, and then we saw her later on. I think it was it Ghosts? Can't remember. Anyway, but she's been in the Fast and Furious, Hobbs and Shaw movie. She's been around. She's Australian accent. I guess she's born in London, but she's really got an Australian accent. Almost it seems that way. Really. Anyway, so whenever I see her on the screen, she's phenomenal. She's beautiful. She's young. She's a good actress. But her the way she looks and her accent, it always reminds me of Claudia Black. You
Okay.
don't know who Claudia Black is? She's
Not
famous from
Kodak Black, ladies and gentlemen. He
no,
means somebody else.
Claudia Black. She's from Stargate SG-1, but but before that, she was in Farscape. She was the main lead actress in there. So I always think I'm like, oh my gosh, she's like a spitting image of of the younger Claudia Black.
Right.
I'm surprised those two have never been in a movie together, but she's phenomenal. She returns back as her character. Uh,
She seems more comfortable in it too.
yes, yes. She even gets to play two
She
different
used to do the
roles.
mask thing, kind of, sort
Yes,
of.
yes, yes. Because of the scene in there where Haley Atwell's character basically has to look like Vanessa Kirby. So then you get to see two Vanessa Kirby's, one that's drugged and waking up and then
Yep.
falling over.
Hmm.
And then we see that the other one is talking to Kittredge. Uh, so, and then we can't forget the best actress of here. I thought she was still dirty in this movie. I'm so pissed about it. Rebecca Ferguson's character, Elsa Foss.
I'm going to have to agree with you because obviously reviewing some of the Silo show, which kind of reminds us of Wayward Pines, which we're also reviewing here on the Extreme Movie Show, and Twin Peaks, which we've covered. Um, I thought she was very elegant in the whole opera thing. I thought it was very classy and sexy and ladylike. And so as soon as we get to meet him right on the horse and like basically getting her back because she's gone rogue, you're like, okay, this is kind of cool. It's kind of subdued rather than over the top. And she's, in the middle of Kerplakistan. And you know what? I mark out. I'm not going to lie to you. And everybody can feel differently about whether this is good or not. For some reason, I'm addicted to sandstorms. When I saw in Rogue Nation and
Oh
this and a
yeah,
couple
dude.
other things, I like that stuff. And here, we see her sniping and being a badass. But I mean, her arc in here, I agree with you because it was basically to kind of like sort of be like his love interest until what happens? She gets
Uh,
whacked.
yeah,
We'll
and
talk about that, but she gets whacked by Esa Morales. I'm like, they did that right, but I'm like, are you kidding me? Well, there you go. I mean, there's the spoiler for you people that haven't seen it.
yeah, uh, yeah, the bridge scene, and like I said, this. Oh man, it just goes back to the first movie. The first movie felt so espionage. It just and there's scenes in this movie where there's no high speed chases, but we also have we have a mixture of the first movie and some of the later uh, action sequences in these Mission Impossible movies. Because the first movie, remember, it was like very like shadow, kind of like spy stuff.
You know,
There wasn't really
let me
much
say this and then let you finish because you're bringing up a really crucial point that I think most people miss about this movie when you talk about the first movie. It was Brian De Palma, okay, aka Body Double and other stuff, and everyone likes to call him Hitchcock and all that crap.
Yeah.
He has a weird sense of humor where, like his team in Mission Impossible 1, he kills them all off. Charlie Sheen,
Yes.
everybody, and it's funny and kind of dark in a way. But here with these callbacks to the first one, there's a lot of people out there posting like, hey, the scene that they did here on a train or this driving thing, they did it in this episode, or they did it, they took it from this movie. I don't really give a rat's ass because we've all seen train sequences and fights. We've all seen all sorts of stuff, but it's how you do it and how engaged it is and how you can watch it that makes it good. Because I'm not going to lie, the set for the movie is kind of silly. We get the summary at the beginning that gets played off by its own internal AI, although
Mhm.
the body's kind of being trapped by the ice and not getting up, I thought was kind of badass. And so they got to find the two sets of keys basically to get them together to see what opens up. And we don't really get that resolution because there's the second film. And so we see Kittredge kind of getting back in the fold in a really awesome scene with Carrie Elways in it, where Ethan kind of gets them and they leave. And then we get what I call the beginning of several really awesome, great action scenes because there's what we're going to call the airport scene. We're going to call it
Yes.
the yellow Fiat driving scene in Rome. We're going to call it the Venetian Rave. And then, of course, the train sequence, which of course includes the big stunt that's everything been advertised.
The Venetian Rave thing. I'm like,
I
what?
love it. I'm giggling over right now. But let's start off with the beginning. You talked about it too with the whole chase sequence and everything too. We've seen chase sequences, right? Tons of them. People like to say Bullet. People like to say French Connection. People like to say even Jason Bourne, especially the second one and all that too. But this whole thing with them acting like a married couple and switching around, I thought it was the best sequence in the movie actually.
Yeah. So they basically what happens from the airport scene, you get to see Haley Atwell's character. She was able to flee, get out of there. Well, because he was also being pursued by the United States agents, federal agents looking for him. So he ends up so in order to basically stop her, they basically they flagged the police in Venice and said it's like yeah, so she ends up getting arrested because on her passport she has all the passports on her. They know who she is. She's wanted, and she's in jail. And she's like, and the guy basically is like, well, your lawyer wants you. She's like, my lawyer, and it turns out to be it's Ethan Hunt. He's in there. He's like, yeah, you thought you're gonna get away with me, but we decided this.
I like that though. It's no way it would happen, but I like it.
But I love. He's like, yeah, we just use your own freaking history against you. You didn't have to do anything at all. It's like he's like, and it's crazy because he's in there too, and then the agents show up there too. So they're like, and then we also have Palm shows up too. Her character in this, she's also known as Paris is her character. She's working for Gabriel, and they're all after Ethan Hunt because Ethan has the key. He has both keys, and so, or at least he did have both keys, but Haley Atwell basically took the keys, and so anyway, so they end up having to flee and getting going into a car, and the car ends up losing both of its doors because, well, that's just the way it happens. They've all four doors of the car gone. There's a huge shootout. And then the good guys, I guess I don't call them because they're federal agents. They realize they say seeing the SWAT guys come up, and they're like, stand down, and he's like, because they want Haley Atwell's character, the Italians do, or the Venice, and then
all these different factions want them.
Yeah,
both.
so they want either one of them, so they're caught in the middle, the car there. And then here comes Palm. Paris shows up and just starts killing all the guys. She gets into the SWAT vehicle. Ethan and Grace get into this car with no doors. They're back, they're driving. Cute thing. Finally, it gets to the point where they need a new car. So he's like, okay. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, look at this happening as a watch. That's another cool thing about the spy stuff. I love this. We see spy gadgets like this. It's like, it's a calling car. I'm like, is it remote control? It's going to drive to him? No, he says it just shows him a map. They go there. And there's like, oh, there's this nice, sports car right there, and it's like beep beep, and it's a little Fiat. Yep. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going with this. So they get in there, and he's like, I love this. He's having performance issues. He doesn't know how to drive. He's like, you know what you're doing? He's like, hold on. It's not. He's getting used to it.
That's exactly how a couple would do it. Man and woman just looking at it differently.
Yeah, and she's yelling at him, and then he's yelling at her. It's like, and then finally it gets to the point where she has to switch sides, and then she's driving, and she's like, I don't want to drive. He's like, it's that's the way they felt because they're being pushed down the stairs, driving this little bug, little Urkel car, they call it, for you 90 kids, and Palm's chasing them in the giant SWAT tank, basically like a SUV or Humvee, you just call them. And there's the whole car chase scene, and then they get caught on this roundabout. I hate roundabouts. Like I said, it's just, meanwhile, you got the cop cars chasing them too. It is just chaos. And it's just, like I said, it's a fun scene going through there. But let's talk about the other characters. And then we've talked about the girls a lot.
Well, let's pause for a moment. Let's kind of get caught up to where we're at this point in the movie.
Yeah,
Because, yeah, I do want to finish the characters, but we're starting to talk about the action scenes. The first big one to me is not even the opening gambit or the gas scene. It's really the spy stuff in the airport. Because one of the things that, if I want to call it a criticism, I've heard
yeah,
some people kind of suggest about this movie is that they say that the first act starts off kind of slow. And to me, I love, and you and I have talked about this endlessly with all the different things we've covered here. I love the spy stuff in the airport because we've got these different groups that we don't quite sure where they all are, but they're all converging on this airport. And so they've got the satellite feeds from, everything going on, and we got the sunglasses going on. So it's classic spy stuff. Hey, we got to walk down here. Hey, they're coming up on your 6 o'clock. Okay, let me turn around here and this and that. So he meets her, and then they have the flirty key exchange thing, but then they're trying to get away. And what's great about all these scenes to me generally will be a common theme that first they start off by a spyish kind of thing like this, very classic, right?
yeah,
So we get a little cat and mouse thing in an airport, and it's a legit airport and all that too. So it's always cool to see that. They love filming on location. It's just cool to see all this stuff, and you see some like what looks to be like a digital ghost here and there, and you're like, okay, this is shades of the opening. And of course, you see a shadow of Issa Morel's character, who, like I say, just to see him, the guy's he's perfect way to be a bad guy. He's got so much
yes.
charisma.
The
But
AI is hiding his
yeah, but
identity.
and then they don't know what's going on. And then you mix in there the fact that there's a bomb, right? And
So yeah,
so
that's what I was going to
that's a
talk
little bit of
about.
a humorous thing, kind of, sorta, which it got funny at the end. But then when he canceled the mission and they all left, and he runs a lot in this movie, and then they escape.
Yeah,
That's cool. But the point is that whole scene, when you look at it, as long as the extent it was, is a spy scene. So what they do
yeah,
is the scenes are very long, but they increase in their intensity as the movie goes on. So even
true.
the big stunt that we've all seen for a year or two now is not the coup de grace of the
No,
movie. It's just a part of it. So this next scene that you just talked about, the driving one, has introduced us to some of these other characters. Because let's be honest, when we see her, oh, she's got this hot Asian, kind of club vibe look going on. She seems orgasmic driving this big powerhouse tank. And what they do that's so simple that people will not do, and even the John Wick films, as well choreographed as they are, they do not do this for whatever reason. When they say, okay, we're in Rome, or wherever it's at, right? They show some overhead shots of like where they're going to be driving and the whole setup and all that. So in your mind, you already know this gigantic, and I'm sure it's a famous area in Rome, of the stairs are there with the different levels in them. So when they get the differences in the cars for exaggeration purposes, and they get the wimpy ass car and they get moved around a lot, but they use it to advantage going through the tunnels, and she's just plowing through everything. It's badass. So then you get the police, you get the other people going after it. It's mayhem. But the genius isn't even the simplicity of telling that story action wise. It's the fact that they're able to put in some humor. Like in was it Mission Impossible 4, when when the sandstorm's coming, and his cable's too short, and the guy says out of the window, your cable's too short, and he's like, no shit, and he has to kind of like jump into it. They say that here with the nuclear bomb, and then in here when they're driving,
yes,
the whole thing about the couple and all that. When it started, I'm telling you, this is when the audience that I was with woke up. It's when he's with her, and she's like trying to escape in the car, and he's on a motorcycle, and he's like, hey, I'm trying to save you, I'm trying to help you, and then all of a sudden you get blindsided. Boom. This is where you see how good of a job they do filming them driving through all these streets with all the stuff, and the roundabout is, it's just sick. It's better than John Wick to me. It's not even close.
well,
And you're absolutely right about the characters. We see the characters being introduced by doing something, right? And that's important. I don't want to hear them talk. Show me what they're supposed to be doing.
the reason this is better than John Wick is John Wick was a slow paced movie. It was one guy basically against waves and waves of enemies.
Yeah.
He didn't do much action at all. It was just him shooting everybody. So I want to get back to talking about, I was talking about the other side characters, and since you brought up the airport scene, that's where I was going to go to.
Okay.
Benji and Luther basically are running a side mission because you realize there's a bomb in one of the bags, and you're like, oh crap, this is suspicious. So Benji decides to basically run down Cyberpunk character. For those who don't recognize names, he runs into the airport. Luther's helping him. And then he discovers, he pulls it out, it's a bomb, but it's a one of those cipher bombs, and he finds out, and then the little digital counter says nuclear, so he's like, oh crap, we have a nuclear. He's like, well, don't tell Ethan's got to worry about this. And at the so they're going through different stuff, different trivia, it's asking about, it's basically The bomb was there to ask him personal. It's a psych evaluation bomb. And us knowing because there's an AI thing, and it's like, oh crap, is this the AI? Learning, well, someone wants to learn about him. What's important to you? Your friends. It's building, and in, are you afraid of death? And all these different questions. Even Benji says it's a psych evaluation. He's freaking out. There's only one more thing key left. A question he has to figure out. He doesn't, and he needs Ethan's help. And Ethan's like, why didn't you tell me about this? He's like, well, you're busy. I don't want to distract you. We're handling this.
Yeah.
And he's like, and there's this freaking out. At the last one, he gets it. He opens it up. It's empty. There's no bomb whatsoever. It's
that was funny in a dark sort of way. I thought.
Oh, it was like so. But all of this, Benji adds more. Talking about the humor, he adds the humor. There's that scene where Ethan has to get on the train, but the train's going too fast because Eli Morales basically just destroyed the brakes and sped up the train, so it's a runaway train. So Ethan can't get where he would. Usually, it was just gonna. I love how you explain the grace. Like, this is how we're gonna do it. You're gonna get there. You're gonna pose the Vanessa Kirby. We're gonna do the drop now. Get the keys, and I'll jump on there off the dirt bike, roll on top, and then I'll grab the keys and I'll parachute out of the train. No, it doesn't work that way. So because the train's going too fast, he misses the train. He has to go another route, and I love how because they can't use AI stuff, they can't use the satellite
stuff analog
because everyone's going analog. Even the CIA was going analog too.
Yep.
Fully analog because this parasite entity, AI entity, basically has control of everything. He can hack into anything. So it was cool to see. It was awesome. Now, I never watched original Mission Impossible, but I imagine that was a callback, that scene when they show you the original analog stuff, screen stuff, or just call back to James Bond and the 60s stuff. Anyway, so that scene we see, this is the scene everybody talks about, the trailer scene, where he rides the motorcycle off the cliff and has to parachute down.
Mm-hmm.
It's all set up because of Benji. Benji's like, well, I got you the quickest route. The dirt bike. He's like, what? He's like, how am I going to away from this side of the mountain? He's like, well, that's your problem.
But you know what? By the time we get to that, what's great about it is, again, they do the same thing that they did storytelling wise with the chase.
Yeah.
You see on the screen, well, hey, the train's going faster. I missed the drop. And it's like, well, how could you miss it? You don't know. So he's like, okay, your job's to find me, a way to get on that train. So you see that his computer spit out the routes. It's like, okay, go here, I'll send it to you. And we see him having to climb up the mountain. So we've already know what the stunt is. We've pretty much all seen it, right, for a year or so now. But now we know this is the point in the movie where they're escalating things. It's leading up to this big climactic moment, right? So we see him going up there. And then the beauty of it, when he goes up there with his motorcycle and he kind of skids to a stop and, you get that little flyover shot of it looking down. Again, we know who Tom Cruise is. We know who this Cruise character is because we know he's playing himself, and that's fine. We love it, right?
Yeah.
He sits there and he downplays this. This is such a great selling job on his part. I'm not saying acting job. I'm saying selling job. He's really just kind of disappointed. He's like with himself because Benji lit his ass up, and Benji was a little more serious, I thought, in this film, and that's what I liked about it too. It conveyed a sense of maturity. But he goes, I'm sorry, I must have went the wrong way. You told me because there's a cliff here, I can't get it. And he's basically, no, that's it. You just got to figure it out. Just go do it. Everything else is like a detail. And he's like, blah blah blah, and he rips him a new one. And he goes, well, and you just. So the point, Tom's teasing us there in the audience going, okay, you fuckers know you're going to get this, right? Because we see right there in the background where it's shot a little bit of a higher peak. It's like, I got to get off this mountain. I got to find another one. And we see it. So he goes up there.
Yeah.
And even though we've seen this in The Spy Who Loved Me, somebody jumping off a cliff and doing something, it still worked in here and looked really, really good. And that's just simple storytelling, but it works. Just friggin' do it, people that make movies, for God's sakes. If you're CGI and everything, you lose this kind of sensibility.
Even the last movie where he had to jump inside the helicopter that was crashing.
Yeah.
That's a callback to GoldenEye. Remember Chris Brosnan on the dam? The plane? Same thing. I love these high intense stuff. Simon Pegg's character, obviously, so when he was telling Ethan, because they're using analog, they're not using, and they're he's he's in a self-driving Tesla. He's got the car drive for him because he's got do all that stuff. And I love how he kind of snaps at Ethan. He's like, dude, I'm stressing out here, man. It's like you're getting on my case, because why? Because Benji is not able to use the normal stuff.
Yeah.
And he's also Luther's not there either. Luther had to leave because Luther's trying to debug their systems. He's trying to work around this because they were compromised, and that's what led to Lisa Foss's death because of this. Because the AI was able hacked their systems, hacked their comms, was posing as Ethan, was mimicking, and it's like, oh my god, it's like this is scary. I could see this happening in the real world. People using AI to basically infiltrate stuff, and so Luther basically left about a good third after the movie. Well, after he's in it for 3/4 of the movie, then he left. So we won't see him to the next part of the movie. Anyway, but there is another character that popped up in year 2 that I was surprised too, because when they're setting up this movie, but and we're now the government's finally learning about the IMF because apparently nobody else knew other than Hendrix and everything was. I can't remember what his name is in this movie. And well, we're introduced to Carrie Hughes. Carrie Hughes is like head of the CIA. In the very beginning, they're having after the whole desert scene, and they're debriefing. He's like, "What do you mean? There's a whole secret thing." And I love how Carrie Hughes is just kind of thrown in. The last time I saw Carrie Hughes was in Operation Fortune.
Oh yeah. And Stranger Things before that. Yep.
Yeah. So seeing him in this, I was like, oh, what is his role going to be? Like, because we've all it's such a huge cast. We already know who the bad guys are, and then they throw these curveballs there. This is what shows with Hendrix wanting to get the key. They want to control the AI because everybody wants to control the AI. If you have the key, you can control the AI, and the AI would be a slave for you. You can choose to destroy it, and like the AI, and it was we learned that the movie AI doesn't trust anybody. It basically wants certain people dead because that way no one can stop it. Even it's revealed by Luther. He's like, hey, dude, Ethan, it's counting on you. That's why it chose Gabriel. It wants you to kill Gabriel because Gabriel's the only one who knows its location.
Yes.
And then we also learned that Carrie Hughes also knows the location of this, and he's the reason why I guess the AI, they are the one that infected the AI into the Russian thing.
The movie does dance around the idea of
corporate. It's like
I take
corruption.
the even deeper philosophical themes with individuality versus computational outcomes and probabilities and stuff, which some people think of a deterministic type of point of view, and versus spiritual. Again, the guy's name's Gabriel, for God's sakes, and like I say, it is a gold
Archangel,
key in the shape of a cross. Yeah, and it's just. It was interesting because it modernized the way of what 25 years ago the supposed end of the world, turn of the century, millennium kind of thing did. And, of course, I always talk about the TV show Millennium kind of played on this religious themes, end of the world, and here it kind of does too. But the thing with AI that kind of bugs me, and I'm glad they didn't get into it too much, is they just talked about how it's in all of our lives, but. Even today's world, they say it'll do the best job at picking a stock or finding a transportation route, so it'll make things cheaper and it'll run your life well. And the thing is, this people program AI, it's a tool. People act like it's its own thing and sentient and all that, which it's really not. And yet you're going to hear all this kind of nonsense in the media. But again, the way they started this off slow with a spy chase kind of thing in there and hiding ghost-like in there was just pretty freaking cool. And when we get to the point here at the end, we're like, yeah, whatever, just get the goddamn key and go figure it out. I guess that's the second movie. And now it's about how do we survive? Because when we get to Venice, which is before the last scene, the train scene, we get this rave thing. And I have to be honest with you. I'm
Scott Adkins showing up there was crazy.
I see, Ethan. We have ourselves here a bit of a predicament. I wish Killa was in here. I would have lost my shit. But here's the thing. I've been around the world in a couple different places. One place I've been to is Venice, and it's as rich and as historic feeling as every place I've ever visited. That includes Madrid and some really old towns. And I just go, the fact that they turned the Venetian Grand Canal and the main square there at the end into like this giant party rave. This is the artistic part of it. Whereas I mentioned before, Rebecca Ferguson in her yellow dress with the sniper scene at the opera, which is just artistic. We got a little bit of the Bond and Skyfall, where there's a chunk of the movie that they make it really pretty. That's what happens in Venice. I wish they'd spent more time in Venice. I wish more movies were shot in Venice and did stuff like this, because Venice is just well suited for films. We get some nice shots there of what's going on. But this is the whole part where they meet and the outcomes are decided on whose fate of who's going to die. And there's a great little knife fight on one of the main bridges there at night, which again, disappointingly, Ferguson's character dies. But it's also the creepiest part isn't that. It's the fact that while they're running around, this is when we remember watching this movie that, yeah, this AI is supposed to kind of use SMRS's character as a puppet in a way, but we hear on their earpieces the AI taking over people's voices and giving like Ethan the wrong direction, so much so he ends up in an alleyway for a fight. And before I let you talk about that, I want to sit here and say I am one of these anti-AI guys. I understand right now there's a big writers and actors strike in Hollywood. I'm not trying to deviate to talk about too much. Billionaires fighting over millionaires' money, whatever you want to call it. That's a whole separate conversation. But right now, in the middle of watching a sports show, and one of the greatest athletes ever that I've known of, called Wilt Chamberlain, a basketball player, and the permission that his estate gave this small group was to, in his 3-part series on, I think, Showtime, they take his words and you can literally read like a couple paragraphs, and AI can take that and make something completely typed up or read in your own voice to make it sound like that person is talking. It's the creepiest shit out there, and people I think already hearing it on Twitter, like Freddie Mercury singing Thriller and all sorts of other examples out there. It's just not right, and something's off if you really know the material and you listen to it, because the cadence and all that, you just cannot fully replicate. And I don't care how powerful of a system you are, but it was creepy with them running around, and Benji freaks out so much. He's just so much so it's like, I got to go find him. And he gets in the boat to go find him.
Yeah.
And you're like, this AI really is kind of fucking dangerous. They didn't play it up for laughs or kooks, man. It was good stuff.
So this whole scene in Venice at nighttime after the club or stuff, and then they're trying to get Haley Atwell's character, because Haley after wandered off, the comms are compromised. Ethan gets caught in a little narrow passageway. I'm getting throwbacks to Casino Royale.
Kind of.
Casino Royale took place in Venice.
It did.
Yeah.
I remember they had the building. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, everything. So, and I'm thinking like this is what I love about this. This is also the scene Venice when they're fighting here and stuff. Reminds me of Mission Impossible 1. Ethan racing to save people's lives because people are getting killed, murdered off, team by one. And at this point, he doesn't, because all the other movies, he's at control. He has no control now. They're compromised, everything. And the little fight scenes, and we got Palm with her own equalizer. She's got the giant lead pipe. And she's hitting, and then he basically I thought he was gonna kill her. He spares her life for whatever reason. We don't know why.
He smashed her head in there. I'm like, this is pretty vicious.
Yeah, he took her head and smashed against the brick wall, but he left her there. But he didn't kill her. And I was like, why? Because she's a woman. They never really explained.
I thought, honestly,
they never really explained why he didn't kill her.
Until later.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so there's a fight scenes going on, and then there's the whole Haley Atwell's character Grace is confronted by Gabriel on this little archway bridge. Yep. I'm thinking like it's like, we've seen this in other shows. In movie stuff, there's a little bridge over the water.
They have names and stories behind them all, and I don't know if this is the one in Moonraker where Bond meets Holly Goodhead or whatever and wants to meet with her and all that stuff. And I don't know. It's a very famous one there. It's not off the Grand Canal, I don't think.
So that little bridge, they're basically he's about to kill her, and so Ayla was because she's handsy with 2 switchblades, and she starts fighting against him, and then she ends up knocking her back, and then Issa Foss is directed to go save her by the AI. they get in a fight. She pulls out her sword cane. She has
Hmm.
to take. It seems like the gas stations all the time. Let's say the hidden dagger sword inside the cane, and they fight. And then obviously she's killed by Gabriel. Well, and then by the time Ethan shows up, Gabriel's already gone, and then she's just dead there. It is just a heart wrenching scene, and it's so quiet. There's no, and now this is different. Like I said, this is what I like about the first movie, because when people were killed, there wasn't a huge crowds. Where in these other movies, when someone gets shot or killed, everybody witnesses it, and then they see him. He's standing there by the body. He can't retrieve the body. I
Hmm.
don't know what they did with the body, if they left her there or what with her or not. But they
Doesn't
don't.
really matter though.
Yeah, either way, I'm just
Yeah.
saying they don't really explain it though. But it's like it's depressing. He's on the bridge. He's just in there, and he's just kind of distraught, devastated. And then you see Benji up. The scene they pull out and they show you him on the bridge with her, and then you see Benji coming from the end of the screen, pulling up the boat underneath the bridge, and then they cut away from that. It is just heart wrenching. And I gotta say, I really love just everything about this whole entire movie. Uh, Anybody who says it's too long of a movie, well, one, you probably didn't pay attention since part one because you're an idiot. And two, you probably had to pee halfway through it because you're an idiot and decided to drink something in the theater. So that's why you didn't like it, because you're like, crap, I can't go to
Well,
the
attention
bathroom.
spans are shorter these
Yeah,
days. That, that
that
that's
too.
that's legit.
So, but getting into it though, I'm just thinking like, dude, we have 4 women in this cast here. 4 women.
And
I'm,
they were all different and good.
yeah.
And it wasn't about Ethan, really.
So
They all
I
got a
kept,
chance to shine.
I kept thinking, who's gonna get bumped off? Or I know
Right.
Vanessa Kirby's character is a villain. Who's and we find out later on through Hendrix that basically her family is a crime family, is only allowed to exist because they work for the U.S. government.
Yep.
Rebecca Ferguson is a rogue MI6 agent. Heliel is a thief, and Paris is just working for Gabriel. Only now I gotta say, out of all the character deaths, Isabel Buzz hurts, but I felt bad for Paris. I feel bad for Pom. Gabriel just stabs her. He kills her. He uses her. He's like, "Oh, Ethan allowed you to live. You failed me, so you're like we don't need you anymore." It's like, wow, how harsh of a that'd be like equivalent to be like any other villain as far as like if you're watching a Kingpin movie, Kingpin from Marvel, Marvel, and then he just kills you. You failed me, so I kill you. Or any other bad Bond villain who kills the henchman because, like, well, you failed me,
Right.
I'll do it myself. And she basically he stabs her in in the stomach, and she's just, and then we get to the scene in Wanted where the train almost goes over the cliff because the bridge is blown out.
Yeah.
Yes. Now I think about it, yes, people were complaining, oh, they stole this from other movies, stole this and this. I don't care. My mind when I first saw that train scene, the bridge being blown up, and then the train going off one by one, reminded me of Uncharted. I think it was 3. Uncharted. Yeah, and a scene, it was really fun to play as a video game. And him, as we were Grace and Ethan Hunt are in the train car. Everyone's in the back, and they're trying to climb up. I thought this was, dude. I did not look away. I didn't look at my phone or nothing. I was glued to my screen when I saw the whole train thing, climbing, jumping forward.
And it's the Orient Express. There's
Yeah.
murder on the Orient Express.
Yeah.
If you're a Hammer horror film like me, you remember Horror Express with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing with an alien on I think it was the Orient Express. The Orient Express is just iconic from Sherlock Holmes or whatever and all that. So where else are you? If you're going to do a train scene, it's got to be that. All great friggin' little action movies have train sequences in them. Indiana Jones, like the first one, Silver Streak with Gene Wilder. Trains are just a romantic old school notion, and they have it in here. I never get sick of trains.
So this is what I want for the next movie. I would love, or if the part 2, the bring back Pom's character, as Verity pointed out, the CIA agent said that she had a pulse.
Yeah, she was not dead.
Dead, not dead. So I'd love to have her come back and maybe be a future MIF or IMF agent along with Grace, who at the end also talked to Kendrick. Says like, I'm willing to work for you guys, stuff, through a mutual friend. You know, uh, we don't know what's going on with Vanessa Kirby's character. Obviously, it's just return. I guess return back to your criminal empire. Kendrick, though, he might be in trouble because he was there, and then the other guy saw him there making a deal. They don't know what you're corrupt, so he might be in trouble. He might die at the second part. Ethan might realize that he's a piece of shit and kill him, or he might let him live. Who knows? We don't know what's going to happen, but that's. But I kept thinking in my mind is like, because we're watching this movie, it's like, okay, where would Disney go with this? Grace, now we're doing a spin-off movies with you. It's the new spy agent for Mission Impossible. I kept thinking, I was like, this is where they'd go wrong. This is where we're gonna spin off with a female lead.
You know what? I'm gonna almost disagree with you, and I'll say this because earlier tonight here on the Extreme Movie Show, we were covering Wayward Pines, the end of the first season, basically episode 9. There's one more to go, and when I was going over some notes about it, Professor Pixel, the young 20-something who covers some TV shows with me, it's occurred to me with everything that's going on with Disney currently with Bob Iger and all the hate that's going on there because of the writer's strike and actor strike and everything. I always knew that in Twin Peaks, the question was who killed Laura Palmer, and David Lynch never wanted that to be answered. And once it did, the ratings went into a shitter, and we were done. And so apparently, and I knew it was forced on him by the studios, ABC. Well, that was Bob Iger there, who was in charge of forcing him to kind of reveal it, saying, "Oh, you can't tease the audience like this. You got to let them know you don't understand how TV works." And Lynch hates the guy for it. And Lynch was very passionate about it, and I guess that's why he didn't want to go back into TV, no, even though he did the return. And so when I think of spinoff shows, I go, they knew they were going to be filming movies kind of back to back, right? So it's going to be kind of one long story, and we don't want to end it on a cliffhanger. We want to leave it with we know what the resolution will be in a second one, where it pauses, right? There's always these long action sequences, and there's a nice little pause and a reset when they get into another car, something happens or some humor, and then they finish it off. And here with the train scene, which I thought was fantastic too, I had no problems with the way it ended, but like you, I'm going, wait a minute. We were getting a lot of love for female characters and strong leads and stuff. If they're all going to be back in the next movie, and if you think about it, Cruise is letting them all kind of shine a bit more than he does. And this is more of a female empowerment kind of movie than it is with a bunch of the dudes. Because Luther wasn't in a lot, right? And Simon was more serious.
I could see if Ethan retires, I could see them doing a spinoff with Palm and Haley Atwell's character.
I could too. And I could see him being kind of like where he just comes in and he's the Kittredge type or whatever.
Yes,
your mission, should you choose to accept it. But I don't know if they planned the last one to be the last one. So I thought they were trying to set up seats for these ladies because, there's a BMW commercial when they used to do the driving shorts. Clive Owen was one of them before they got Casino Royale up and going when they were trying to look for the last James Bond. And I at that time, I thought Clive Owen should have been number one. And when they got what's-his-face to do it, I was like, I don't really know this guy. Okay. Daniel Craig. But they have her in one, and I go, you know what? And I'm bashing on Indy as much as you liked it. This little short called Calm, C-A-L-M, it's got Uma Thurman in it also. They show her being picked up by this driver in a car, and it's very transporter-ish kind of vibes, like with the BMW, right? But it was so much better than anything Indiana Jones did. But it showcased her, and they put it out at the same time, roughly, with this movie to kind of PR-wise hit it. And it's really cool because you'd mentioned something to her about her before, and I had no idea who she was. So when I saw it, I went, this is cool. I could see something like her because she's got that crazy Asian eye thing going on where she looks like she's going to kill you and you're turned on by it as a guy and you want to see that. Am I being honest here?
Well, she's got
she's got an intensity about her.
No, she's got the Xenon on top.
Yeah, exactly. Because she even got him in a few like things, and you're like, that's exactly what that's from.
The Famke Janssen character in Xenon on the top, yes, and GoldenEye. She's got that crazy look to her, and a lot of times we watch those movies and those. Well, you watch a lot of the martial art movies. You watch the action movies they have over in Japan. They with Jackie Chan, or you watch it with what's his name? Ip Man. What's his name? Donnie Yen. Yes, and you'll have the tough female cops, super cops with them too. And honestly, Palm, I could see her doing some stuff of that. Now, obviously, now I don't know what her if she probably doesn't do her stunts. I don't know. I can't say
I'm sure
yes
she
or
doesn't.
No.
Yeah.
But at this point, I really don't care. You know, um, there's a lot of scenes I was watching this where Ethan's fighting in the dark. I can tell it's not Tom Cruise fighting; it's someone else, stunt doubles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Even with the knife fight scene, you
so
can
I
see
gotta
it.
point out one of the most hilarious scene though I want to say out from this military movie. This would be my final thoughts on this too. You know, is the scene in the airport scene where he's being chased. You see Ethan go, he climbs up this ladder, goes to the top, and the guys are like, "Where'd he go?" And you see him running.
Yeah. It's a great shot. It's like he's got to be around here somewhere.
I laughed my ass off. Like no one else in the theater is like everyone's quiet. I was laughing. I was like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" You just see him running to the right.
I think the scene that the audience laughed most I was in was when the Italian police get her, and we see all these people coming to get her, whatever like that, and they get a call and they're like, "Okay, your lawyer is here to see you." And she goes into like the really nice looking library, and you just see the lighter that was his that they were pickpocketing back and forth right there on the table. The whole audience chuckled, and then he came around with his glasses on. Everybody was kind of like laughing at that. That was pretty funny too.
Yeah. So I said, all the way through the movie, even on the train scene where you got Eli Morales fighting against Ethan, and then with the because Eli, he's like, well, or sorry, not Eli, Isai decide, he's told by the AI tells him, when the he'll jump out because he's basically the train's gonna crash. He jumps off, he lands on the back of the truck. I kept thinking like Saved by Katie Litter. Kept thinking Mitchell Pfeiffer. He lands on the thing. I was like,
okay, but so the thing is supposedly the AI has computed all these computations and they've come up with a generic plan. And what made it interesting with the ladies was the fact that he did not kill her in there, because we were set before where he says, "Hey, one of you two ladies is going to betray me and one of you two is going to die." And he was right. But here, even though when Tom didn't kill her when he had the opportunity and he left, and then she died, you're like, okay, it's true. So one of them did die. And it was true later on because he did get betrayed by one because, she didn't kill him or whatever like that. It was like, oh, but then he knew where to be at the right time. And he plays it off so calm and cool. I'm glad he's not talking as much as he is when we just watch him, because he's, like I've said, he's a charisma magnet to me. He just reeks of
Ethan Morales,
Latin heat. He's always been that way. We've talked about it before. He was great in his role, especially at his advanced age. And I say advanced, he's middle aged. He looks great. He was the perfect in control foil about it, and I thought it worked well, rather than one of these screaming lunatics that you're like, yeah, I've seen this type before. He was cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of Antonio Banderas is 62 years older than him, and I kept thinking like Isai. I kept thinking like he's much younger, but no, he's only 60. And I kept thinking like Isai really reminds me of Antonio Banderas, as his career had still been going. He had to really kind of fade away from the spotlight. But yeah, he's the mysterious bad guy, the good looking guy.
I look at him and I go, damn, he's handsome.
I know he's like. He's the handsome.
Man, he is, and I'm not ashamed to say it. I'm a pretty heterosexual now. I'm happy with myself, but I look at him and go, damn, he's good looking. Well,
in this movie, the film, he's the handsome bad guy, where Tom Cruise's character is the handsome good guy. He's like 006. You didn't think about that, yeah?
Saying that I feel like each one of these actors has been underutilized. Yeah, and the thing about it is, and I'll say this, and I'll start getting my final thoughts here, is that when you introduce characters into something, the whole point to me is not just to introduce them to give them a spinoff or world build or any of that bullshit. You have a story, you're trying to tell it. The way. What you're chasing isn't as important as the chase itself necessarily. I mean, think of Indiana Jones 3 about the Fountain of Youth. It's kind of ridiculous until you actually see what it means at the end in terms of what happened, right? In this movie, they lay off the AI enough where you don't go, oh, that's stupid or that's dumb or that's cheesy, because it's been done before, right? And so when these characters are in here, you run the risk of, and let's be honest, since we're talking about actors and how they look, you can look good in person, look a different way in print, look a different way in movies. It's just how it is. Somebody can take a great photo but look ugly in person, and I don't mean to disparage anybody or anything here, but it's how it is. filming something's different or drawing something's different than taking a picture. There's all these different nuances to it that everyone just seems to forget in a digital world. And like I say, the
Yep.
women here are distinct enough where you might say they might look kind of plain or they might be dressed up exotic. Any woman looks great when she puts on $1,000 custom dress and it's colored to her skin tones and all those kinds of things fashion wise. But they're all competent. There was none of them that were their beauty was so stunning that or they showed, like, say, a lot of cleavage where you're just distracted, right? And we all like it. We're all biologically wired to find symmetry in what things we find attractive. But the show does a great job of, like, when people are dressing up, the whole thing with dressing up is you don't wear something where people go, man, that suit looks good. You go, I don't notice the suit because the suit mends with your body so well that you just focus on the most important thing, which is your face. And it's the same thing with what the ladies wear. It's classy, it's not sexy, and there's a difference. And like with Haley Atwell, I don't know her, and I just remember a lot of scenes going, well, man, her stunt double or doubles, they're really fit because you can see their butt and their forearm and their shoulders. And I go, I don't know if that's really her. I can't tell. But the positive thing I would say, not knowing her, is I thought she looked the role and did it fine. I thought she had a little bit of a kind of constipated look on her face for a while, like, okay, she's
Yep.
supposed to be flirtatious, is she supposed to be this or that? I wasn't sure, but she acquitted herself very well, and I thought the others did too. And when you have them, you can't have them outshine the main star, which of course is Cruz. But I loved how he was the anchor and he was able to step back, let them all shine. So, like
Yeah.
Princess was saying, were they underutilized? Could you use them more? Yes. Do they need to be? I don't know, but I
Yeah.
feel like it was
There's
intentional for the next movie that's what they're going to do.
yeah.
That's my takeaway. But
The women, you can feel the hostility in the room, especially then Venice in the club scene.
I was
Venice
great.
Kirby's like, he's like, oh, and I love how Lala's like, so who's this? He's like, and she's all kind of flirting with Ethan. Vanessa Kirby's flirting with the Ethan,
Well, I think she was having a lot of fun with that, and
Oh
I
my
love she
gosh!
really opened up her
But
character.
and
She's not just this
so
one-dimensional character anymore.
so Tom Cruise is 61.
Yeah.
All these women are between 37 and 40.
Yep.
They're all my age, right around there. I think the oldest one is Haley Atwell, who's 41. Where
Okay.
Palm is she's 37, and then Lila, what's her name is Megan Ferguson's 39.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm thinking that it's like oh, this guy's 61 years old. He's a top of his game. He's handsome. He's a secret agent, and he's got all these women are half his age wanting to bet him. Like this literally is James Bond done better than James Bond.
Well, what's that old expression that the sweetest fruit is from the oldest tree? I'll just leave it at that. I'll close with this. It's a different movie. I think it needed to be, especially with how well people really loved the last one, and ever since this ever increasing intensity from, say, number 3 or number 4. I know 3 was kind of divisive among people, and people think no, second one's just a John Woo film, and we've covered some of those. But I think from 4 on, they've just got nothing but better, and everybody's for a decade now has gone, shit, how can they do that? How can this one be better? And I think they did the right thing by taking each of the different action sequences. They went with the lowest intensity one, and then they built it up until the big climax of the end. They smartly told how they did it. They introduced characters successfully. They beautifully shot where they were at. Pretty much mostly practical effects for the whole movie, which they pride themselves on. Again, this is what I've been wanting, was hoping it would be, and I didn't really think there'd be any issues other than the fact it was supposed to come out a year or two ago, and with COVID and how things go, there's always concern that maybe corners get cut because of such an unusual circumstance around the globe. Um, it makes me sad a little bit too, because of how much you and I look for action films, or good or bad ones, to talk about that. Once he's gone, there's going to be very few people, it seems like, are going to make movies like this. But this is a movie where I'm like, take my money. I want to go see it in a theater. It does make me want to go out and see these again. And my goodness, what a wonderful, fun film to do it. I thought the pacing was great, even though it's almost 3 hours long. It moved well. I enjoyed it a lot. I think it's one of the best films I've seen this year. And I know Top Gun last year was raving success. And I'll go back to what we said at the very beginning. When you talked about last year with Top Gun going to do really well because of word of mouth, I completely agree. I think this isn't going to have that big of a drop off going into next week, despite Barbie and the Oppenheimer film too by Nolan. That being said, I find very little flaws with this movie, and if there's a couple things that aren't as great as maybe you think they could be, or whatever, like the AI being an enemy, I don't know what to tell you other than you're a hate watcher. And while I might agree with you, it doesn't detract away from everything else. I mean, it's about as flawless as you can find in terms of an action flick. And it was just fun going in and walking out. I was relieved. I was like, man, that was fun. I enjoyed it. I felt really good about it. I'm really glad I saw it. It did not disappoint me, and that's very hard to say. What final thoughts do you have about this film?
Final thoughts is I'm upset that we did not get a Brad Pitt villain at all.
What do you mean by that?
We had Jeremy Renner. I mean, we have Jeremy Renner as in this movie. You know, from his, you know, I'm thinking we never did have a crossover. We didn't have Matt Damon show up at all. We could have Pierce Brosnan. Imagine him being on one of these movies as a villain.
I'd mark out big time.
Oh my gosh. You'd browse all over the screen. No, like I said, I'm just thinking like this is like we only have part 2. We don't, as far as we know, it's gonna be the same kind of cast except for those who were killed off in this movie. But man, I kind of do hope we get a spinoff. Will it be the same? Probably not. But I'd love to have like Ethan show up every once in a while. You know, not in there constantly because I mean, but it's kind of like people expect him to do all the stuff if he's there all the time. But if he's not there, people are like, well, I don't want to watch it. There's no Tom Cruise in it. So it's like I just want it to be like treated with the same respect. I want Tom Cruise to be involved. Obviously, it'd be awesome doing the spinoff, whether he's in the movie or not, or I would love to have him because otherwise, as soon as Tom Cruise lets go of the reins, somebody else takes over. It's gonna suck.
I agree with you. Yeah. I really do.
So, final thoughts. 2 hours and 45 minutes of just fun. If you're gonna see this movie, guys, for those who are older, get up in age, you can't hold your Blair as much. Make sure it's like basically if you were going driving for 2 hours, you're traveling. Make sure you don't have anything for the drink for 12 hours before you see the movie.
Oh, stop!
No, I'm serious. Man, I drove
Bring your
2 hours
bags.
once. I'm only 38, but I drove like for 2 hours once way, and I did no stop, and I nearly peed my pants. So I started what I started doing is not just drinking anything before I leave. Straight up, and Illinois traffic too.
That's nothing on Florida, bro.
Florida,
Chicago.
Well, Florida, you can just pull over and pee because it's all water anyway.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next one too. Not sure if we decide on what we're going to be doing Tuesday night. We got a short list we'll talk about here in a moment. Next week.
I think I'll give Silo a chance. They're on episode 6 now? 5?
No, they're done, bro.
Oh, they're done? Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I'll watch Silo and you watch 2 seasons of Jack Ryan.
There you go. Yeah, and news of note too. Obviously, come December we'll be reviewing it. I just got word that Reacher season 2 will drop then, and they're filming season 3 now. Don't know if that's paused with the actor strike.
But dropping in, and we also. Actually, you know what? Have you watched Justified?
Nope.
Oh my gosh, that sucks because the new season of Justified is dropping in 3 days.
Interesting. Yeah. No shortage of things to talk about too. And that's why we like to address anything anybody likes to suggest us to take a look at. So, I'd like to thank obviously Princess for showing up on this one. This is obviously a very fun movie. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I know we don't always agree, and that's the fun part about talking about these things here too. And just what to expect and all that too, not to get too hardcore into the politics or anything that's going on, but just point some different things out that might affect your way you look at it and anything you'd like to contribute. That conversation is always the fun thing here, and that's what we enjoy on the Xtreme Movie Show, and that's what makes us unique here. So,
Verity, you would love Justified. Timothy Oliphant, Walter Goggins. It is just builds up like this. It's a TV series. They have like 6 seasons. Every season, the villains get better and better, and then one of the villains in the first season becomes a friend / villain. So and
a frenemy.
Frenemy with a out of the box U.S. Deputy Marshal played by Timothy Oliphant, who is got away with women, and so he tells you, don't pull your gun on me, I'll shoot you dead. And so he's an idiot, it pulls on him, and he has to shoot him. He's got the paperwork up the Yahoo, So he is the bad boy cowboy with the hat.
Oh, those cowboys really know how to pull something. Rustle up some tail.
if you like the Shield, you like the Wire and all that stuff, you'll like Justified.
Yeah, we'll examine a bit more of that stuff as the years go by here on the Extreme Movie Show too. I keep wanting to let you guys come to the conclusion that it's time to review the Hardy Boys from the '70s and T.J. Hooker from the '80s, or the Equalizer, or anything else that I loved. But
Also watch Bosch. If you haven't watched Bosch, Amazon Prime, watch that. Bosch Legacy came out last year. Season 2 is coming out this year too. A lot of stuff to look forward to, and hopefully the old band drops later this year. I mean the season too, not the old man.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say it because we were wrapping up here too. I'd referenced earlier here about Mission Impossible, artificial intelligence being kind of like the enemy.
Yep.
I did go ahead and watch the first episode of the Wilt Chamberlain documentary that we were talking about offline, and apparently his voice got permission from the estate to go over stuff. So it's weird hearing Wilt talk when it's not really him talking. And a lot of the stuff's based off of clips we've seen, but they've got Rick Barry and some other people giving their views about things, because he's by far the biggest, fastest, strongest athlete of the 20th century, period. Not even Shaquille O'Neal, not LeBron James, not Michael Jordan, not anybody. He thinks so. This guy was a stud, more ways than one, and one of those elite level performers that people don't talk about. And kind of interesting, but it's interesting that it came out now with AI and with the writer strike and everything going on. Whether that affects these spin-off shows for Indiana Jones, we don't know yet. But the more expensive it is to make something and to turn a profit, at the end of the day, they're going to go to cost-cutting measures, which means, like I've said, the smaller studio to me is the way to go. And I've mentioned John Carpenter all the way in the back, and plus low budget stuff currently today, whether it's A24, which Professor Pixar, our other guy here on the Extreme Movie Show, is not a fan of. But even Blumhouse, they have a stranglehold. They have a system that works, and you've got to have a system that's flexible. Tom Cruise has figured that magical formula out. So if you have not seen Mission Impossible 7, go ahead and see it. I'm thankful I saw it on the big screen, because I would be tempted to see it at home too. But man, I'm glad I went to the big one. And we'll talk more about these movies in the future, but what a great film. Check it out, guys. Have a good night. Thanks for watching. Stay extreme.
Later, guys. Extreme!
This has not been a Dan Curtis production or Quinn Martin.
It's an Extreme Dan Curtis